Awesome. Let's go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us this morning. My name is Jesse McElmury. I'm with Teradata. I'm a principal consultant in our BI and cognitive design practice. We are a Tableau Gold partner. We do extensive services. We're lucky enough and fortunate enough to do work with Walmart. To my right is Heidi Daniels. If you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm Heidi Daniels. I'm the Director of Engineering at Walmart. So my team, excuse me, my team leads all of the visualization analytic tools for Walmart corporately, and that's across the globe as well. So for example, Tableau, my team, I have two of my team members sitting down here. We support Tableau globally, so not just in the US, but we have instances in Mexico, China, South Africa, and some others. So we're pretty global, and we support that for the corporation. So if you think about, this is our agenda, so we'll just go over Walmart overview, our scale, and then building platforms for enabling power users. So if you think of Walmart in the bigger picture, there's a lot more to Walmart than what most people think. So these are some of our new brands that we've acquired over the last couple of years. So when I say Walmart, I don't just mean what you think of in the stores. So we're the stores, we're Walmart, Sam's Club, we're Jet, Moose Jaw, and a whole bunch of other partners, Flipkart in India, a whole bunch of other things that you may not think of us about. That's what we do. So we're more than just retail as well. So we have an online presence and stores, obviously, but we also have things that most people may not think about when they think about a retailer. We have our own aviation fleet. We have our own transportation and trucks. We have legal, pharmacy, merchandising, marketing. So all these different business sectors all within one umbrella, and my team supports all of those. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, and we can totally make this open session, so if you guys, I'm okay with formal, but if you have any questions or you want a little bit more information, just shout it out. I'm pretty informal. So these are some of the objectives that we're working on currently today with Tableau. So we want to make sure that all of our customers, and when I say customers, I don't mean people out in the stores. I mean people that work in the home office or work out in the field, so our store and club managers have access to data and can make decisions to make their jobs easier. So some of the things that we're obviously focusing on is mobility and how do we use devices, for example, in the store, so that as you're walking around and touring a store, you can look up a department. If there's out of stock, you can look up what's going on with inventory. So really put that in their hands so that they're not spending their time in the back room. They're out in the front making products and putting products out there that customers can go and buy. So we have it when they need it. Obviously, printing is a big expense, and you can make really minor changes in your environment and save your company a lot of money. So obviously we want it to be paperless as much as we can and stop the printing. And then obviously we want to leverage all data sources that are out there, whether you're on-prem, whether you're on the cloud, whether you're Teradata, DB2, SAP HANA, it doesn't matter. We want to, or just an Excel spreadsheet or another data set that people use that aren't as formal in a database. We want people to be able to leverage all those data sources.
Absolutely. So the session is all about scale, right? So let's take a minute to level set and understand what exactly scale means at Walmart. So how many of you in the room are responsible for a Tableau server environment? A good number. Awesome. So let's talk about cores for a minute. So how many have 48 cores or more? Heidi, you raised your hand? Yeah, okay. 96? Okay. How many have over 100 cores? All right. Oh, a couple. Okay.
Yay.
I'm talking Tableau server cores. So at Walmart, they have, across the many environments that Heidi mentioned, hundreds of cores, including the largest environment that on its own is hundreds. The small ones are 50,000 user environments, right? So, I mean, that's a big scale. And to make all of this work at that scale is work, and it takes planning, and it takes foresight. So that's kind of what we're going to go into a little bit more today. So from a user perspective, just under 500,000 registered users have access to Tableau at Walmart. So obviously, it's a full self-service environment. So they can do what they want for the most part. So with some level of control, light governance, which we'll talk about in a minute. But it all works, and it all works with a very small team that Heidi has. 2 million sessions a month, so that's a lot of jobs, that's a lot of workload on the server environment. From a data source perspective, you can see that there's on or around 4,500 published data sources, and that's in addition to all the embedded data sources that are in countless numbers of workbooks that exist on server. The 500,000 extracts per month. You do the math on that, that's 12 extract jobs that are running every single minute. So these two guys in the front right now are responsible for making sure that every one of those 12, every minute of every day, complete, which it's impossible to have them all complete, but they are managing it, right? And they do an excellent job. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that.
I have a question for Heidi.
Yep.
What's driving the user counts? Is it the store people, or is it a lot of corporate users? Or?
It's a mix, honestly. So we have it out in our distribution centers and our stores and clubs, but we also have home offices around the globe. So if you look just in Bangalore, India, for example, we have several thousand people that are home office type of users in Bangalore. We have sourcing offices across the globe that do, clothing sourcing and all of those things. So we have a lot of remote offices around the globe for those as well. So I mean, you hear we have 1 million associates, so that's when you get down to the hourly in the stores and clubs. But just to give size and scale, just in the Bentonville home office, we have over 10,000 home office users. And that's excluding our California, our Reston, Virginia, our Dallas, and Austin offices. So that's where most of the work comes from. Yep.
Just a real quick question, if you're going to address this later on, what drove your distributed environment? In other words, instead of having one massive cluster, you got
Sure.
stuff all over. Is it like network latency, proximity to data sources,
It's a little bit of both. So
local admin teams in each area?
yes, we do. So our largest one here is over 190 cores. We call that our enterprise environment. And then some it's legal. So if you look at China, there are certain rules and regulations in that country that says you can't have physical servers and data outside of the country. So some of it's legal. And then honestly, some of it's just lag time across from the UK over to here. So as we grow and develop, and we'll talk about the cloud in a little bit and hit on some highlights there, but those are some of the reasons why we have distributed. And then we have other that are really business specific. So online grocery is pretty huge for us. We really want it to have a really tight SLA. So what you'll see is we have really open self-service environments. And when I say open, when I started leading this team probably about 2 years ago, there was really almost no governance on the environment at all. So it was kind of a free-for-all, which is good and bad. But when you get into something like online grocery and your stores and clubs are looking at it and they need the reports for online grocery, you really need a really tight SLA. So for those, there are business reasons why we have it separate. We don't share that environment because it's dedicated for a big growth vehicle for our company, which is online grocery. Yep.
I don't know if you're going over this later. How many different types of data sources are you guys using?
All of them?
Biggest? I don't know. BJ? Yeah, that's what I would say. Teradata, Hadoop.
Awesome. Yeah, and we can talk specifics
Yep.
later as well. So level settings. So why self-service analytics, right? Why are we doing any of this? Why are we all here this week, right? Data is everywhere. We're being consumed by it. And, Heidi talked about store managers and being able to walk the floor. It used to be that store manager would request a report or a dashboard. 6 months later, an IT-centric BI team would hand it to them. And it may be usable, it may not. But what self-service allows them to do, and Heidi's team to do, is enable the store managers and enable teams across the organization to create that content themselves. And they're the ones who know their business rules. They know the questions they're going to ask. And the platform that Heidi owns and provides gives them the ability and the capability to do that. So that's where the difference is made. And it's true, you'll hear it all week with Tableau, right? I mean, that is the power that Tableau provides. So what is self-service? We could probably take another poll, and everyone would have a different opinion, right? Some of you are saying, well, it's enabling users to go to the last slide, ask and answer questions with their data. Simplifying it, it's enablement, right? It's allowing people to find answers themselves, and it's as simple as that. You build it out from there, and you there's a lot of details under the hood, but don't ever forget that as you're building a self-service platform, you have to make enablement a focus, and you can't lose sight of it, because if you lose that, it's just a ghost town without users, and they'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen the shadow IT in the business. We've all seen the business doesn't want to get in the queue of IT. This is part of that, right? And how do you find that balance between allowing them to do things on their own and having a little bit of control and governance? So we'll get to a little bit of that.
Absolutely. So we're going to walk through kind of 4 core fundamental areas of how to build out an environment. Some seem obvious, some not as much, but it's important, stick to these concepts, build on them as you're building out self-service. I mean, Tableau is, through land and expand, they've made the product so easy to deploy and so easy to grow. But when we're talking scale, when we're talking providing a platform to 450,000 users potentially, there needs to be a little thought, and foresight put into that as well. So we're going to talk through each one of these and just kind of go through some core concepts of each. Heidi's going to share, how they're, applying each one of these specifically at Walmart at that scale. So starting with define. So what are we doing? The old way was, requirements. We need requirements, whether it be, a dashboard or a platform. We're going to, requirements. Well, my recommendation is to turn that a little bit, approach it differently, approach it from the user perspective. What do they need? Going back to, again, enablement and empowerment of those users. How do you do that? So you need to understand what they're trying to achieve. The store manager example, it's the perfect use case, right? IT would build a report. Oh, they run it in their browser. They see yesterday's sales, right? What they don't know is that store manager is consumed by staff the second they walk in the door. They're walking the floor, they're walking departments. They don't see their computer. They don't see their office until midday in the afternoon. So that great dashboard that's sitting on their browser at their desk is useless. So understanding the needs, understanding the user journey, that store manager throughout the day, what does their morning look like? What are their pain points? And really digging into understanding your users. It's the same whether you're building a dashboard or building a platform. It has to meet the use cases of your users. And as you do that, you kind of discover, what's working today, what isn't working today for them, what do they want to see, what are the business questions they're trying to ask, that you haven't even heard about. It's not even on your radar yet. So, they may, the store manager, maybe that leads you to mobile, and it wasn't on your radar yet, but now it's on your roadmap, and you're making sure that your platform supports mobile, and it supports it at scale. And what that allows you to do is build a partnership with, if you're IT, build a partnership with your business users, because you're taking their input, you're listening to their input, and they have a stake in that. They have a stake in the game. So, Heidi, do you want to talk a little bit about specifics of what that means at Walmart?
Yep. So obviously, bring your own data is a big deal. So it's always a balance between having one source of the data and then bringing their own. So that's a little bit hard. So we're working on a strategy for a data lake. Right now, there's really no wrong and right answers, just trying to get it all together so that people consume and make decisions based on the same base data. Mobile is huge for us, so as you could probably imagine, everybody knows Tableau has mobile. That's not a shocker for anybody, but at Walmart, we have really stringent bring your own device and security regulations. So we've been partnering quite a bit with Tableau to try to get it to work within our AirWatch environment. So you see some new deployments and releases coming out from Tableau. We've been working on that with them jointly and their engineers and VMware engineers for about a year. So we're really excited about that. So it'll bring it, right? So they can do it today. It's not the best. They can enable browser. They can go on their phone, look up on a web browser and look at the reports, but it's not the same experience, right? So that experience and mobility is what we're really going after. Natural language is another one that we're really working on the cusp of and doing some proof of concepts with. So we're really excited to, even with some products, you're going to have a base group of users who don't know how to pull data together and build dashboards and reports. So how do we make it and enable it to be easier for them? If you were just in the session, you saw it. I've had a demo of that a couple of times over the last, few months, and that's exactly what we're looking for is, if I'm talking to a store user, they don't know how to go out and do that. And if somebody hasn't pre-populated some data in the way that they need it, they have a hard time finding the right data that they need. So a thing like NLP is going to put that in the palm of their hands where they can look and search and do things and find, what were my sales for milk last week? Find out why their side counter is empty. So there's a lot of things that really come about, really positive for just regular business users to type in real natural language and get some data back and some information back. And then we're looking at data prep as well. We're really excited about scheduling, as probably most everybody else is. But we're looking at, today we do things, and when things aren't working, quite frankly, we push a lot of things to Alteryx today. So not that data prep is going to replace the whole thing, but there's some experience on users where you can keep them, from an experience standpoint, if I can keep somebody in one product versus having to switch them between a couple for some base data prep blending kinds of things, I prefer user experience. And then we'll still have the partnership. Obviously, my team supports Alteryx as well. So we'll still have those deep, really good cases for an Alteryx platform as well. But it'll be a good partnership between the two. And I can keep people that need it on one platform.
Yeah.
Yep.
Type of users are experimenting with natural language capabilities like merchants, store managers?
So today, we're doing a proof of concept in our finance organization. So they're the ones looking, right? Because if you can get the finance and the sales data right, everything in our organization builds off of that. So if I can get to store item kind of level, that's the sort of, like from a business use case, that's what we're really looking for. Even though it starts in a financial, it applies to everywhere, right? Merchants want to know sales, like all those things want to know sales. So that's the part that we're looking at. We haven't went past IT, honestly, because we want to do a bunch of work on it, make sure that we're partnering together, the features that we know are going to be critical are going to be there and work and that sort of thing. Because we don't want to tease our end users and then they're waiting and waiting for us to deploy it. So right now it's an internal partnership that we're doing some POCs specifically around finance and sales. Yes. Hi.
Hi, you spoke about the data lake, right? How are you building your data lake? I'm assuming that you already have a data warehouse.
Yes.
And you might need some information from there. You're already cleaning it and putting it inside your data warehouse. Are you bringing it back to your data lake for reporting?
So we're working on bringing all the things, right? So the data lake isn't necessarily the data warehouse. And that's not really my space, so I'll just gloss over it a little bit. We tap onto it and we partner with them. But really our focus is getting to one source of the truth. It doesn't matter where that data is. That's the real goal. And ultimately, we don't want it to be on-prem, right? So you'll hear us talk a lot about cloud and how do we get to a cloud deployment so that we can take advantage of features where we can scale better. We build our own data centers today. They're very costly. It takes a whole team of people, and our data centers are massive. We have several of them. And so it's hard to keep up with the demand and volume, as you could imagine, with somebody the size of Walmart, where we're exponentially having new data every day. It's hard to keep up with that demand personally ourselves and building data centers. And, the cloud does it well, so that's what we're looking into.
So we've got a good handle on the needs of the users. Now, not before we do that. It's time to develop and build that platform. Starting with when we're talking about server, it's defining that server architecture, right? What does that look like? What are the number of various processes in Tableau, whether it be VizQL processes or backgrounders for those 12 extract jobs every minute. What does that look like when you're doing this for 450,000 users? And it's not a develop it and forget it either, which I'm sure Heidi and team can attest to. It's constantly evolving. The needs are constantly evolving, so they're adjusting and they're adapting to meet the changing user needs. But in addition to the architecture, it's support. How do 450,000 users get help? I have a problem. Tableau, help me. Who is Tableau at Walmart to help? Part of it's Tableau, and they are a great help. But a lot of it's Heidi's team, right?
Yeah.
So they obviously can't scale to that level. So it's making sure that you have good content to help your users and good, crisp, refined processes to help them out as well. So it's as efficient as possible.
Yep. So for my team, I don't look at my team as a pure server admin, administration group for Tableau. We're bigger than that, and we do a lot more than that. So just to take it a little step further, we may have slides in this in the future, and we'll just click past them later, but it feels like it naturally fits in here. When we talk about, how do we get help? So my team runs a Tableau Tuesday on site. Our first one had over 600 attendees, internal to Walmart. So we do a Tableau Tuesday. Last year, we did them every other week. It was a lunch and learn type of session, and we partnered a lot with Tableau, and we would do things like how to design dashboards to attract your eye to certain things, how to do advanced calculations. We look at, here's the new features coming out, and here's how you go and actually click on them and use them in the product. But the really interesting thing that we also do is every other week is our own internal organization just demoing and displaying how they're using Walmart data in their business with Walmart-specific data to share, right? So we've created Slack communities, which has been pretty big for us. That way, if somebody has a question on how do I do X, Y, and Z, my little team of what was 8, by the way, and I support not just Tableau, but about 10 other products. We can't field all of those questions, so who better to help themselves than the own community themselves? So really building a community environment in our Tableau space is what we've really been working on. So we had a question earlier about do we have local admins? We do. And VJ will get up and be on a conference call. We'll talk about things like standard server configurations, automation, auto cleanup kinds of things. Like, what are the best practices that we're doing in our really large enterprise environment, and how do we leverage our associates around the globe to help us take care of that? So we give them a little freedom, and they get a lot from us and the learnings that we've had from our enterprise environment. So we've just started the next phase of that, which has been really tapping into the local server admins that partner with our team. I think last week or the week before, we just kicked off, it was for the site admins. So we're gonna have a really specific, hey, you get some additional access, and with that comes a little bit of responsibility, so that we can now take it down to the next level, where they're monitoring their own sites for usage, cleanup. People aren't just dumping a bunch of files out there and filling up the space. SLAs, like user management, all of those things that we should partner with the site admins, and quite frankly, we hadn't been doing that today up until recently. So we're kind of going on this journey, starting big and then narrowing down to those specific use cases and looking at those. And that's really made a huge difference in the organization, right? So we try to plan better communications. When we roll out mobile, we have a whole plan on how we're gonna partner together and do some best practices and have some visualizations of before and after, and how do we, when we implement mobile, you have to know there's something. It doesn't, it automatically works, but you could take it from this level to this level if you follow these best practices, right? So we're also doing a lot of that evangelization across our organization and really across the globe. So we partner a lot and do the same sort of things, and we have people from all over the country go. I know it's a little mind-boggling for a lot of people when I say we have an internal user group and 600 people came. And that was a small amount. So just desktop users, we have over 4,000 desktop developers. So it's pretty large population of people. So it's how do you put the information in their hands so that they can use it and it's still self-service, but we start to govern just a little bit.
Yeah. And I can't stress enough the model of, allowing and providing a platform for your users to showcase what they're doing and show off and brag a little bit, right? Because what happens is they're proud of what they've created, they want to share it, and they become champions for what you're trying to achieve, and they will support most of the time, the processes and some of the governance that also needs to be there to keep things stable. So allowing users to, with very light controls, represent themselves in the community, it cannot be understated.
Yeah, so you can be a server admin and you can have a rocking server deployment that works, but that's only going to get you so far, right? I mean, you're still behind the scenes, things may be running, but you're always kind of in defense mode in some of those cases. So it really, one of the things that I highly recommend for people to do is, it took us a while to get to all of this. We didn't do it, big bang approach. We started small and added layers on. I didn't even talk about newer things that we're doing around internal doctor sessions, newsletters and what's going on in the industry, and really helping, because training, if you're like most companies, we invest a lot in products, and sometimes we don't invest in training our people on how to use it to be successful, to have good adoption and successful adoption, right? So training goes along with it. A lot of these are softer ways that I'm trying to incorporate training. That's one of the things that, quite frankly, I'm still working on across our organization, is how do you train that many people? And how do you give them access to free things online, or maybe in person, because everybody learns a little bit differently. So I'm still honestly working out and figuring out the training piece. But this has been a really great start for us over the last year and a half, and it's really exploded our Tableau environment. And the success of the people and the happiness of the people that are using it are light years better than what it was previously. So.
Yeah, and just enabling the community. You mentioned the Slack channel. If you have 4,000 Tableau users, or however many desktop users that are participating in that Slack channel, your support team grows to 4,000 people at that point, right? So you're not, the guys in the front row aren't getting every question. How do I, why did this, right? It's posted to Slack, And people are, those 4,000 users are on there all the time, and they can be more responsive than the support team in a lot of cases because they have so much to do and are so busy.
Yeah, and I can't also leave out look outside of your organization. Almost everything has a local user group. Our local user group coordinator is here. So we also partner with folks outside. So around us, we have Tyson and JB Hunt, Mike's Hard Lemonade, and a bunch of other companies that support Walmart in our local organization. So there's a lot to learn from other people. And so there's other ways that you can go about building community, not just within your own corporation. So
yeah, and one last call out for those of us I think that have been in the Tableau community for a while. We when we first joined, we wow, people are so helpful, and there's so much knowledge and free knowledge, and it's actually useful.
yeah.
And years go by and you just kind of expect it. And for new users, if there's any new users in the room, use the community. It's the strongest, and the public community I'm talking about in this case. It is the strongest user community I have ever been a part of with any tool, any product in my career, without exception. So take advantage of that, embrace it, go to a user group, participate in the events that Tableau hosts and the partners host, and just see what others are doing, because they're all, they're having the same struggles as you, right? Whether it be development or whether it be managing a platform, there's people out there that are experiencing the same pain and have likely, hopefully, found a fix, and surprisingly, they're more than willing to share that.
Yeah, and don't feel like you can't ask questions. I know some of our slides are whitewashed. Legal requires me to do that. So if you have questions, let us know. We'll answer them as best we can. Yep.
Can you speak more to the semantic layer and how you handle published data sources in the semantic layer and kind of how you look at that landscape?
So we don't have a lot of governance around that, to be honest with you. So we'll get to some of operational. So just as much it is about education, on the other side is the operational lens that goes with it. And we have some slides of some things that we're doing, and it's a balance, right? But honestly, we don't have a really controlled environment where only certain people can publish data sets and you can only use published data sets. We don't do that. So there's probably, more than likely, lots of data sets that have the same data and maybe the same information or not. That's one of our challenges currently that we're working on. Our environment's large. We're working on how to slowly start to put, I try to call it guardrails rather than governance, because people don't like the word governance. The minute you say governance, people want to jump out the door. And so some of the things that we've been working on is, how do we clean up projects that maybe people aren't using? How do we clean up data sources that have been sitting out there that people can see that nobody's using? So VJ's honestly been scripting a lot of that and cleaning up tons and tons and tons of that. Next phase is obviously kind of users within, that's just been stagnant in the environment. So that if that's something you struggle with, so do we. And so we're working on how do we start addressing some of those things. We implemented where if your extract runs over 60 minutes, we kill it. We kill it 3 times and you restart it, we disable you. Because you're impacting everybody else on the system. That's a pretty base governance, but people don't like that. So, but we're proactive about it. So it's all about how you institute it. So when we made that change, we communicated it through a lot of our user community kinds of things. We proactively looked and said, who's over the threshold before we implemented it, and we worked with them on performance engineering and making their stuff better and what options they have to get it under, because if you can get it under 60 minutes in our environment, I'm sure all of you can as well. So we worked with them, we got everybody below. We always have new ones that pop up because new people come every day. But now the guardrail is there, and we send them emails, and we have a help channel that people can open tickets. We can sit with them and do performance engineering. So that's really where I'm pushing my team, is more than just server engineering and admin. It's performance engineering that goes with it. And some of these are the softer kind of first steps that I've talked about, but we're getting into the nuts and bolts and the details of some of those, and really changing the way that it is. But bringing our users along with us. So it's a little change here, and it's really good to tell them about what the benefit of it is, right? Like, why do you care and what do you get out of it? If I'm measuring Jeff over here because he's been killing the system, all of your guys' stuff is going to run better, right? So it's not just about you, it's about the environment. So it's really about how you partner with them to deploy things like that. So that's what we've been stair-stepping on. Yep.
Regards to big data, so our companies right now running into some of the issues, especially running on our data warehouse in Teradata. That's why the main reason I came here is we are running, for instance, we have a table that has over 10 to 20 billions of rows that
Sure.
needs to refresh every day.
Sure.
Those kind of reporting, we cannot utilize Tableau at this moment because of the extract.
Yep.
Will not finish. We're talking hours and extract time.
Sure.
We're not even doing that. So we're looking into some of the other tools, like, people are running S-Space, people are running some of the semantic layer tools,
Yeah.
but it's not working well with the Tableau. So right now, we don't give them an access to Tableau, those people, because simply they can't access those granular report who wants to aggregate all the way down.
Yeah.
All the way down. Our customers are like 10, 20 million.
Sure.
So is there people that you can, any aggregation tools or any tool things that you use for this?
So honestly, and VJ, you can feel free to correct me, but we'll push a lot of, like, we have some of those use cases, we absolutely do. And some of those, honestly, we push to Alteryx and we schedule workflows every night, and then instead of pulling all the data, they pull like last week's data and add that on. And then the runtime for the extract is a lot smaller. It's usually overnight after the tables are updated, and it's available in the morning. So those, honestly, that's our fix for how we do it. Is it the best or only? Probably not, but it tends to work in our environment a lot.
Do you guys use an Alteryx server environment as well? With
Yes.
the Tableau server to maybe the schedule flows?
Yes.
And then you publish directly to the database.
Yeah.
Using that, do you get sub-second response time? I just wanted to, because they're looking for sub-second response time.
Let me, all right.
You know what my answer always is? It's never no. It's what's it going to cost you to get there.
Yeah.
That
So-
usually changes their mind when they ask for that.
So let's piggyback on that question. And so we kind of dove into the topic of monitoring a little bit. We jumped through governance. No one wants to talk about governance anyway, so we managed to avoid it. So talking about monitoring, and so you cannot control everything that everyone is doing in a self-service environment. What you can do, and what Heidi's team does do, is watch what's going on, right? They want to be able to sleep at night. They want to know, are jobs increasing? Are they decreasing? Is a node down? Is a node up that was down? Maybe that's the case as well, right? Are individual processes down? All these monitoring activities that are critical, and honestly, at the end of the day, just help them get a sense of confidence that the environment is running. One more point before we kind of dissect this slide a little bit. So admin views. So if you're new to Tableau Server, start with admin views. So out of box, they're going to give you usage information, performance information, did my backgrounders run type information. Those are all there, available to you now. Start with those. From there, build on that, create custom views, connect to the repository directly, and start building custom queries to really understand performance and usage trends and things of that nature. Going to the sub-second response question, so we see a daily snapshot here. Not sure what time this was taken, but it was today, it wasn't yesterday. So far on this day, there were 871,000 jobs run by 54 users. Of those, almost 820,000 jobs ran in less than 5 seconds. For self-service, that's pretty good. And that speaks to the platform, the architecture, and to the structure and the modeling done at the data layer, so that it can be ingested into Tableau and perform well. It's a balance, and you need both pieces, right? looking at this, what else does this tell us? My eyes automatically go all the way to the right. So the left, 820,000. I don't really care about those. They're not going to complain. Everything is good. What I care about is that 6,500 jobs that took over 60 seconds. So why are these running over a minute? From here, this is rolled up to the entire server platform. But sending this type of information to your users. What if I'm a finance manager and I have 3 dashboards that I expect my users to use and my team to understand and look at every day? I can see if they're using it, first of all, and then have a talk if they're not. But also understand if performance is slipping, right? Do we need to look at optimizing that or changing something? So you look at the far right, the further right you go here, those are my tuning candidates. So if you go on a departmental level, which you can by site or project or what have you in Tableau Server, you're going to get, okay, here are my 10 that aren't performing. And then those teams can enhance that. And you can automatically notify them through a dashboard like this that, hey, maybe you want to focus here or take a second or a third look at what might be happening on your dashboard.
And it's enabling, like what we talked about earlier, the site admins, enabling them for their sites to be able to see what's happening within their site. Today, I will say the vast majority of our site admins don't know how to do that. So how do we make it easy for them and put the data in their hands so that they know what to go after and what to help and do, right, within their own sites?
Yeah. One more example, and I'll do a survey. So who thinks this looks bad? Because there's a lot of red. Okay. All right. So I would actually argue that this looks pretty good. About 60% of extract jobs are successful. So because it's so easy to use Tableau and publish content and publish extracts, users come in, they publish an extract, it's pointed to a local file, and they forget about it, right? So it's running constantly. I've seen environments where this is 90% failure rates. They clean up, it's 80% failure rates. At Walmart, disabling jobs after they fail 3 times, gets you to this threshold because it's constantly doing cleanup and constantly managing that environment while not, going after users directly and making them change their ways too abruptly.
This is a progression over time to even get to this much success, right? Even with all the things that we do, you can still see that we have room for improvement within our own space, right? So we absolutely aren't perfect, and we still have, right? There's a lot of people to go chase. I mean, that's a lot of extract failures. So how do we start, chipping away at more of that to make it better? Even we have issues with some of that, right? With just the size and the number of users that we have. My small team of 8 to 12, we can't chase that many users. So what's the next step in our evolution to help go after this problem of extracts, right?
So we want to leave time for questions.
Yep.
So just quick, bringing it all together. So we talked about defining the need, developing a solution. We skipped over governance. But we talked about monitoring, right? And in self-service, it's guide rails without disabling users, right? That's what governance is all about in this context. Monitoring is huge. Get to know, if you're an admin or support a server platform, get to know the data model of that repository. It will be your best friend. And use the out-of-box views to start doing that. Heidi talked about all the community, the training and development and the mentoring, both within the organization and outside of the organization. So with that, we have a few minutes. Any other questions? Yes.
This is usually the better part of.
Exactly.
Right? People ask the real specific things they want to know. Yep.
So I have 2. One you can answer in 5 seconds, and the other one we might need to go have lunch.
Okay. Yes, we do.
And what percentage is live versus extract?
I don't know the answer to that.
I mean,
It's about 80-20. We encourage users to use extracts a lot more than live.
right here.
So
We encourage users to use extracts more than live. It's about 80-20.
80-20.
Yep.
Great. So then the follow-up question, which if you could summarize, but then maybe if you have some time later, is there anything that you've done on the Teradata side specifically to support extract queries
Sure.
or live connections? So that's the quick
Y-
answer.
So I will say yes. I'm a firm believer, and I can't just focus on my product, it's the whole stack. So we work with the DBAs quite a bit. I myself am an ex-Teradata DBA, so I understand how that stuff works. My husband's a DBA for Teradata at Walmart. So yes, we have a good insight into that.
And there's, just to piggyback on that a little bit, is that, there's a lot of different use cases, right? It's not, you should always connect live, right? Or you should always use an extract. And even as, a single dashboard or a single, user need evolves, that may change, right? What is the data currency requirement? Do I only need monthly data? Do I need, 30 minutes ago, right? And, you start there and then you build out and optimize
Yeah.
and tune and iterate based on that.
I mean, sometimes it's query tuning, or you need a new index or something on the database platform, but it can be something more simple, like a process that helps it, right? So today, when they log on with Live, they use their own ad hoc ID, which has lower priority. They don't have as much spool space, blah, 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 blah. So that's an issue, right? But when they want to do the extracts, they're not really IT people, so they don't really have batch IDs or admin ID kind of things, but we've partnered with our security group to allow us to have application IDs that those people can use within Tableau, and it helps during their batch process not run under their ID, so they get better priority, better spool, they get their stuff a lot faster and more seamless, right? So it took us a little bit, but we have done some. I'm guessing you're looking more on some of those kinds of things as well. We've done some of that so that it's not an ad hoc, right? But there has to be traceability for security and a lot of other things, logging, so it takes a little bit to work that out, but you can do it.
Have you done anything at all with the columnar data model in Teradata? It's a,
I don't know that answer to that.
I don't know.
I mean, we can follow up, I can get you an answer.
Yeah, let's chat offline.
Yeah,
Awesome. Lunch.
I have some cards up here, so, yep.
Sir.
How would you convince a company so I have the opposite problem of they're over-governed, and they don't let me attach any tables. They say I have shadow tables, but really they're just attribution tables that
Okay.
they're not just having their system, but I need them in order to link. So what would you say to try and convince them that, to let people use the data?
So I'll tell you this. The real answer in our organization, whether it spreads to yours or not, is you need a strong leader like myself in place to help with that. I manage up all the time. If you would ask, so we have this thing in the data lake and we have this global data portal, and if you ask the product managers of global data portal, they don't like how we have an enterprise download, how people can get access to Tableau or Alteryx themselves. They want to shut it all down and you can only get it through there. I buck that system because not everything is in their portal and not everything is in their lake. Eventually, long term, yeah, it might be, but today I still have customers that need and want that, and there's use cases for it, right? So it's a battle even in our organization, to be honest with you, I'm a fighter, so I don't just do it, so that's good for my team. But you have to know how to do that in the right ways. So, I mean, even we have the same sort of lockdown, right? So it's a balance. So we're actually getting ready to potentially implement a more lockdown, kind of like our online grocery that I talked about, because there's two hats, right? Our engineers that are on the IT side want, Heidi, what's your SLA for Tableau? Well, I don't have one, right? What do you mean you don't have one? It's self-service. We monitor it and measure it as much, but if you want an SLA, there's a cost to that, right? There's also governance that goes with that. You won't do things in production. You'll go through reviews. So all of those things that are more kind of handcuffy, we can give you SLA environments. This is what it costs you. That's what we're working on now. So I'm going to eventually have kind of double. So if you're good enough with whatever, or you don't have budget and 10-second response time versus sub-second, or you really have a business process like online grocery, for example, that you really do have a business case for an SLA that's we are adhered to go meet for you, there's a cost to that. And here's what it costs you to go do it. You pick whichever one you want. I don't care. Yep.
And as far as, just to add to that real quick, as far as getting IT to give you access to what you need, if you can build a strong business case and justification for it, it goes a long way. So, whatever you can do to understand what it is you need, and, just build the business value for it.
I just find it better.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I find a champion at a higher level that I, convince to be on my side. I'll just say it's sides, right? And I use that person. So that's the route that I go a lot.
Cool.
Yep.
Is there a question right there?
Yep.
Your dashboards that are taking longer may use functional IDs to pass through to you, that there's a query banding from Tableau to Teradata to optimization?
I know we do query banding, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know specifically if we do it.
Whether it be for something like row-level security through passing that user ID, or working with the workload management structure on the Teradata side, to prioritize jobs. I'm not exactly sure if your team's doing that or they're doing it at Walmart today, but we certainly
I know
have
we're doing query banding. I'm just
customers
not sure how it.
that do just that.
Yeah. But I know people.
Nobody else has a question, I've got another one. I don't want to monopolize this. So say I'm a new person coming in, and the first question I ask is, well, where do I find X? What kind of platform, what do you have in place to help me find out where I should be going to do my self-service in the, I'm sure, the huge universe of data that Walmart has?
You publish your phone number, right?
That's a great question.
Do you have it? So I work for PepsiCo, okay, so we talk a lot.
Yep.
We're in the process of putting in Elation as a data catalog, and we're just getting started. And I didn't know if you had something along those lines that you could share.
Honestly, we have a whole team that does nothing but the governance type of products and tools, and it's a mixture in our environment. We have a homegrown tool that we call MIDI that we're developing ourselves to go do it, but we're also looking at some products kind of to pull all the, they all have different pieces, so we're looking for one to kind of the overarching. It's still a journey for us as well. I know people think that, we have it all together. We don't. There's been opportunity for several years in that space, and we do have teams actively working it.
Because I've been asked to do basically your job, it sounds like. I've kind of identified, you've got to have, it's a three-part story.
Yes.
You have to know where the data is.
Yes.
You have to present and publish the data, so that's the whole Tableau
Yep.
plan. And then you've got to help me know what's out there
Yep.
already, so I don't reinvent the wheel. You mentioned you've got extracts that are probably the same as other extracts that are the same as other things. So I'm trying to avoid that.
Honestly, we're in the process of, right, so overarching, and I'm sure this is probably common on a lot of organizations, but who's the data steward? It's a great question, right? That's exactly what we're going into finding right now, right?
Sure always is? Well, I thought you were.
IT. People want to complain about data and analytics and where we are, but nobody wants to own the data. So that's a journey that we're on as well, partnering with our business, and it comes from the top. So Doug McMillan is pushing it down from his level. That's where it's at within Walmart. There will be ownership in the business to own their data, right? That's one of the key missing gaps of our overarching really high-level corporate strategy, right? Whether we do it with Calibra or MIDI or a hybrid of a bunch of tools, we're still honestly doing some POCs and working some stuff out because some of it's time to market, and let's be honest, no matter what your tool is, when you come to our environment with our size and complexity, whether it's a data governance tool or it's a Tableau tool, there's always things that we wish could work better or doesn't quite meet our needs. So it takes a little bit of time to kind of massage those and get them where they're at. I know a little bit about that space, but that's probably about as deep as I could go on that. Yep.
So I have a question about data governance. I know you don't touch about it, but
Yep.
so how do you balance sort of data security between different departments?
Yep.
And that's self-service reporting. What are your challenges and sort of what the things that you face
Sure.
in the process?
Honestly, in a lot of our products, we try to use like AD groups, so all of those access controls are automatically. When people grant access to AD groups or such, they take care of all of that. We have a little bit of opportunity to get to that space, honestly, in Tableau. But right now, whoever the site admins are, they judge who gets access to that data or not. Yep. And then obviously, like underlying database access, you know, who can pull it, but once you pull it, you can publish it to people. So that's still something we work really tightly with our security department. We do security compliance reviews on all of our products. They get certain levels of data classification approvals. So, you know, some products you can do confidential, some you can do just basic data. So we always work across all of our products to understand what level of data classification our tools can enable, right? So, and sometimes in some of our products, just to avoid that, we'll have a separate, when there was a question about how do you judge separate instances, some of it's that, right? We don't want anyone to ever have something HR related, so we really have a really tightly controlled HR environment. Yep.
Anything else? Yes.
Just curious, with that many users, do you encourage or discourage the email function? I forgot what that subscriptions.
No, we don't.
I was thinking it would probably swamp
Yeah.
email spammers.
Yeah, and it can also, you know, swamp backgrounders and the other processes,
Yeah.
right? You know, managing things like thresholds and alerts are another big factor, you know, to make sure that those are going out, you know, because those have to wait in queue just like any other job, so, at multiple layers in the stack. So, wonderful.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day and your conference.